Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk Real Estate and Stuff. How's it going, guys? Happy
Going
Friday.
good. Going good. Happy Friday. Love the background. Not sure if that's new or you're just kind of settling into the new spot and adding stuff, but it looks good.
I'm unpacking. You'll notice that this cubicle is full of wires. Um, so I still have to organize a little bit and hide some of the mess, but yes, getting unpacked. I found some books.
Love it. But doing great. Glad to be back in office here. Papa P, how we living over there?
Living
Lakeland.
large, living large. Thank you for everybody watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click
Love.
the button. We're doing well on our subscribers. We're getting up there, doing our shows every single week. Always talking about something relevant. What are we talking about today? I think you were at Family Mastermind, right?
I was, yeah. I think we'll recap that kind of a general thing. I have a couple bullet point items I'd kick to you guys to get feedback. We're going to talk about Papa P and some more park stuff, I think, as well. But yeah, we can start off with Family Mastermind. On the way there, we decided to
Hold on, no,
drive.
hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
I think you have to explain to people what Family Mastermind is, just to give them some context before you walk in and explain what happened.
Most mastermind and events are based on real estate strategy. Like you go to like a wholesaling event, like the one that we talked about a couple weeks ago, and they teach you how to pull data and manage data and cold call it and do creative finance offers, XYZ. This is more so like influencers, coaches, educators, real estate investors in general join a mastermind more so for collaboration as the goal to see how you can like interact with different companies to benefit everybody. So we've been in that one for a while, probably at least 2019, but maybe 2018. We've been in there, and that's twice a year in Tampa, which is a lot of fun. Ran by Matt Andrews. He's the absolute man, golden retriever type personality, and
He is
just
a golden retriever.
really
It's
really
hilarious.
really masterful connector. I resonate because I have a little golden retriever in me as well. But it was really, really good in Tampa. We decided to drive this time just because flights have been kind of sketch. The last time I drove back in a rental car because of the hurricane. So we drove. I went with the Hessel Media / Remote Latinos team, Esteban Andrade, guest of the show, and his partner Omer, who's actually hilarious. You guys would like him. He went to Colombia during COVID just to visit and got locked down there, and he's just been living there ever since because he loves it so much.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
he's really, really funny, and he's the other partner in Remote Latinos that we've had on before. But it was really, really good event. I would say high level people are definitely optimistic in doing business together, despite whatever the market is saying. Some people definitely are more of the Sean Terry approach that we've discussed previously on the podcast of kind of more of a bearish black swan event impeding type situation that's coming on. But overall, really cool. Hulk Hogan spoke, who was actually really, really good. Dude is still jacked at 70 years old. And I didn't realize that he was like a musician, like playing all this stuff before he got into wrestling. Has had like over 35 surgeries, something crazy like that from wrestling, like 10 back surgeries. He's had both knees replaced multiple times, both sides of his hips replaced, all kinds of crazy stuff. But inspiring nonetheless. Inspiring nonetheless. And I always like going to those just to kind of kick up some dirt and really get like a pulse on just what people are talking about and thinking. And I'm big on relationship equity as well, virtually, meaning if you go hang out with somebody, and even if you just have like a quick interaction with somebody, 3 months, if we hit them up like, hey, do you want to come on our podcast? It's just way easier to get that stuff done, both speed wise and the willingness to do it. So I'm big on that type of stuff. I am happy to be home though, and knock on wood, not traveling in October, just so I can lock in and be home. But if it's cool with you guys, I would definitely like to kick. I probably got about 10 different like little bullet points that I moved. I have kind of like a master note list that I took, and I just kind of want to throw up a couple to you guys.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Some quick feedback. So I would say a couple general things before I go to that. 6 months ago, and everybody that's watching this show is pretty aware that artificial intelligence, or AI, which has mainly been or largely been kind of, how would you say it, like a chat prompted. You ask it something and it will spit out a prompt of what to say.
Yes. Yep.
That is definitely still a focus in the marketplace, but I would say to a certain degree it's almost lessened the importance of it. the one of the breakout rooms that I was in, it was like a software JV collaboration tech room. And
Hmm.
you guys would know a lot of people in there. The Investor Lift Squad was in there. Jeff Henry, Tech Mobile, all the CRMs, everybody was in there. And it felt like it was a little bit of like a less importance on AI, and the focus was really, which I think is probably going to be the main thing that we talk about today, is they were saying like when you're selling a software, and I'll go into specific examples, but high level, when you're selling a software, the companies that are able to sell it as like education with that software, like linking it together, are the ones that are gonna be successful. Not necessarily a coaching program, but you bring on someone that's kind of like a micro influencer that's not the head of the company, that's training the specific thing. For example, if you were to bring somebody on for RAI Ops Center that's using that outside the company, and they're able to kind of teach like, oh, here's how I clean my data, here's how I do X, Y, Z, and then have that as part of your kind of like, knowledge base or YouTube, however you want to do it. Those are the companies that are going to be very successful. So
Are they suggesting that you have one person doing that and it's prominently featured like this is how you to learn how to use Investor Fuse? Or are they saying like multiple people are posting to YouTube about how to use your software?
yeah, I think it was more of like a general statement of just doing that in general
Okay.
is going to be good. Like we've seen some companies, and I was talking with everybody. Like Resimply, for example, does a really good. I
Right.
met Sherrod and in person, and they do really good job at that, of getting
Hmm.
like some of their top customers to like make YouTubes and reviews and stuff like that. Even more so on the review side, they talk how they use it, but it's more so like deep knowledge of the product. Like that would be like Papa P, like going in depth on Investor Fuse, which I also want to announce too. Um, we are getting it teed up. We have the date set. It's in October, but the Lead Management Mastery panel
Hmm.
hosted by Carrot that Papa P will be on, as well as myself. So that's almost like a perfect example of what we're talking about there, but in kind of like a public platform.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, but let me go through really quick. So first thing, did you guys happen to see any of Pardon the Disruption? They filmed it
No,
right from
no.
there. So that was cool. That was definitely cool. An interesting thing Steve Trang has been saying lately
Hmm.
is, and some of this is like maybe you guys are going to be like, okay, like obviously that's happening, or obviously that's pretty logical to be happening. A couple things. He is more so bearish on wholesaling in general being around in like 5 years.
Yeah,
Like he think
Not being
wholesaling,
around?
yeah.
yeah,
Or
Well, he said that when he was on our podcast.
mhm.
yeah. The examples he gave at during Pardon the Disruption and just when he was talking is the I guess masterminds. I don't even know if they call them that, but the realtor based meetings. They're now having like strategy and spending time on how to get rid of wholesaling. They're like, how can we get rid of these wholesalers? Another joke was that more agents are using Brent Daniels' cold calling script now than actual wholesalers. Like they're like a little
Funny.
bit behind the trend. So like all these agents are now like finding out about wholesalers and like using their coaching while also trying to like get rid of them, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, you know.
But But what do you guys think as far as, and I know Steve mentioned that before, but what do you guys think about like kind of realtors wanting to get rid of wholesaling, but also like they're like
Nah,
trying to use the direct to seller strategy?
They won't be able to
really.
get rid of it, but they see it as a uh, the term I'm looking for, threatening their business and the amount of business and the amount of volume. So they're always going to do something. So I don't think they're going to be able to get rid of it in its
I
entirety.
I would pose to Steve to actually back up that fact. So like I feel like there's a debate there. I disagree with him. Realtors suck, dude. And here's the reason why. They don't make enough money. Just do the math, okay? Your average home, right? 250, 300K. They're gonna get 2.5 points off that, right? So you're getting what, 8 grand, 9 grand? You're gonna get $9,000 on one listing that you get. Okay, the average realtor sells between 6 to 12. And then you're sitting here saying that you have to buy the data, right? You have to skip trace that data at 10 cents a skip. You have to then go and buy the dialer and actually do the work or hire somebody to do it. your costs start going up, but your revenue stays the same. The difference with a wholesaler is the higher our costs are and the better negotiating we are, the higher our revenue can go. Realtors will always be capped at a certain revenue until realtors start wholesaling, but then they're not realtors, they're just unlicensed. I'm not a realtor, but then they're not realtors. So Steve's not accurate in that, man. Like, I don't know if anyone debunked what he said, but it's a fancy thing to say. Realtors could try, but they'll always fail because they'll never make enough money to do what we do. Now, there are certain aspects that they could do. They could definitely market. They could definitely put it out there, but will they replace us? No. Realtors are scared to spend money in the demographic that we go after. Now, you could debunk me and say,
Right.
Brandon, realtors make a shit ton of money. Look at Ryan Searhant. Look at all these realtors. At a certain price point, it makes sense. So once you start getting into the $600 million plus houses, and now you're 3%, because guess what? When you get into the higher prices, a lot of those guys, they don't care if you charge them 6%. They just want the service. They want it done fast. They want the best realtor possible. The richer you are, the more you're willing to pay. The poorer you are, the more you're trying to save. So in the normal realtor demographic, the ones who are actually cold calling that Steve's talking about, you're not going to catch $1 million realtor sitting on a phone cold calling a bunch of people for a listing. He's using social media, referrals, networking, events, parties, games, those types of things. It just won't happen below here. But yeah, the $1 million, listen, dude, like some of these parks are selling at $1 million. The guy who's doing mine, he's double ending it. He's getting 6 points on 600K. He's making $36,000. It's different. So you start selling those houses and you're making 30K, guess what? You're making wholesaler money. But guess
Right.
what? Wholesalers aren't going after those houses. So go for it, bro. Go after it. We're playing around in the 80K. Do you know how much a realtor makes off of a fucking fixer upper? That's all I used to sell. You're making like $1,500 fucking dollars, bro. Maybe
That's
you
barely
double
barely
and
to cover your monthly Mountain Spring Water tab.
yeah, it's barely enough to cover my dialer, my data, and all that. So yeah, and then the thing is realtors aren't, because they're not making enough money and they don't actually have a coach and they don't have an office and a system that encourages that, because brokerages aren't set up like wholesaling offices. The consistency and the ability for them to survive longevity will never happen. You know, my old broker, my mentor, he told me it takes 3 years to build a business as a real estate agent. 3 years. But it takes 4 years to actually make money. So he goes, the sad thing is by the end of year 3, most people have already quit because they're out of savings. They've starved the entire time and they just can't make it. But by year 4, you have your business and you're making money. By year 7, if you're still in it, he said, now it's a legit business and it just starts flowing. All the referrals are coming back. People who moved in before are now moving out, and you're getting now listings and you're not just a buyer's agent. But you have to survive that, dude. You have to survive those years. And if you're putting all that money in, and you know what brokerages don't teach? They don't teach marketing.
Now, there are a few brokerages out there that are going investor and like a normal realtor route and teaching their agents both sides of the business. But I mean,
But again, who's spending that money?
I can't remember. I mean, Greg
It's the
Simpson
agent.
does it.
It's the
Yeah.
agent spends the money. And guess what? If I spend the money as a broker, I'm now tacking on another 25%. So not only am I getting a 25% referral because it's my lead that I spent the marketing money on to give you, but then there's a broker fee on there. So even if you made the $6,000 from that marketing and you followed and you did the warm follow up and I did all the cold, you're still only making 40-50% of that. So again,
That was
in the
quick math I can't follow, but I'm believing you.
so 25% is a referral fee, but most brokerages will have like either it's a discount brokerage at a $295, but they're not going to supply you leads, but they'll
The
have like a
brokerage
20.
is giving leads to the agents and taking 25% of the agent's end commission.
If it's my lead, I'm getting 25%. It's a referral. I get 25% of my lead. But then brokerages themselves have a commission. The broker could get 10%, 20%, 30, 40%, right? So if you bring your own lead, John, my commission may be, listen, I'll take 20% up to 20,000 a year. And so there's a cap on how much I take. Once you make me 20K, Cool. It's all you keep 100% of your commissions. The high earners like that. They like having a cap because they're making 100 or 200-300K in commissions. They pay that off by like midway through the year. Does that make sense?
Okay.
But if I'm not only am I supplying you the office, the systems, the CRM, the tools, all of this stuff, but now I'm supplying you the leads. Now I get a referral for that lead too because I did all the marketing. So now I'm getting the normal broker fee, commission, handshake agreement or whatever contract agreement, and a referral for. I'm just saying, like, even when brokers do this, it's not very lucrative to the agent.
It's
That's
never
why
going to be like a wholesaler starting out on their
it's
own.
never going to be like a wholesaler. And if agents were smart, they would just move into
Yeah.
I remember there was a deal that I could have wholesaled, and I went to my broker, and it was up on Northside, and I was like, I had it super cheap, and I knew someone who wanted it, and I didn't have the money to buy it. I didn't know about wholesaling. I was trying to like double close it, and I went to
Mhm.
my broker because we had done deals together, and I explained this to him. He goes, "Well, you have a listing agreement?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, you can't." He's like, "You can't do that." He's like, "They trusted you to be their agent, not to be an investor. Buy it from them below list price," because I knew they would go below list price and then go and sell it for like a 20-30K markup to the flipper I knew. So when you have those ethics involved too, you're kind of bound, you're duty bound to operate ethically, whereas wholesalers are duty bound to get it at the very minimum price. And so it's worth us spending that money.
I wonder if novations. I want to get to the rest of the topic because I know I'm just
But
curious.
novations-
As novations get more and more popular, I wonder if that becomes more of like an encroachment upon realtor territory.
No, it doesn't encroach upon realtors. It helps realtors because we want a realtor to list our property.
Mm-hmm.
So now I will offer you a commission. I'll call you and I'll say, "Hey, listen, I'm selling this property, blah, blah. It's called an ovation." You explain it to them. And then here you go. I'll give you 2 points as a listing agent. You don't listen. If you're an agent and somebody calls you and says, "I'm giving you a free listing," you had no marketing to do. You don't have to deal with the sellers. You don't have to negotiate the price. You don't have to do shit. I got everything lined up for you.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah.
All day. So they'll love that, which is where Steve's going with this, which is, I think, novations, double closing, wholetailing, those things are going to be the key, which if you listen to a lot of these guys, they start saying the bigger, and I know Robert Wensley preaches it all the time, but it's the bigger wholesalers that'll really survive. And yes, smaller ones will break through and get there. The ones that are able to save their money, build their business, reinvest in their business, and have private money to take deals down, those are the ones that are going to survive in this game. Because I agree with Steve. I think wholesaling needs to go out of the way. I don't think the whole idea of what I asked Steve of like if we had like an ethics board, I don't think there'll ever be an ethics board in wholetailing because there's no way to hold anybody accountable. And as long as the gurus are teaching everyone, listen, dude, last week you said there's a fucking 13-year-old calling. That's all well and good, but that's disrespectful. Like, I get it, hustle mentality, everyone make money. Bro, you can't drive, you can't buy a home, you don't know shit, you don't have your own money. I get it, but as a homeowner, you're not telling me you're 13. You're lying to me and representing that you're skilled and that you have more ability than you actually fucking do. That type of behavior is what will shut wholesaling down. And everyone's at these events applauding these kids to doing that. And all you're doing is going to make it harder on everybody else as soon as they get wind of this, and use those case studies as examples as to why the government should be shutting us down. So it's cool to sell reels and Instagram stories and YouTube videos, but it's a crock of fucking shit that most of these guys who've been in this business that long applaud that shit. You can applaud the hustle mentality, but it's still unethical, and it's going to shut wholesaling down, which in the end benefits the bigger guys because then it reduces competition, brings down prices. So in the end, are they wrong? Probably not. I mean, fuck it, dude. Like, they make money off of them at events. They make money off of them at events. Then they make money by applauding them, selling them something. And then when they make that popular and people catch on and regulators go, "Oh, look at a 13-year-old buying houses. We need to put a law up against this." And all the newbies get kicked out. And then they make money because they're the only ones still around because they have a shit ton of money and they can survive.
The long game, man.
It's the long game, bro. Like, I guess as I played that out in my head, it's a good strategy.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, dude, you're good. That was
You know when
the
you bring up
producer can put
realtor
that
shit,
up.
it's like when you bring up realtor shit, it gets me hyped. Realtors are a disappointment to me. And there's so
Yeah.
many good ones, but there's way too many of them, and most of them don't have the ability to survive.
Mhm. Preach.
All
So
right,
I
keep
don't.
going, Carlos.
No, you're good. The I think I only want to hit on a few ones. But that's funny because it was at the last event. So this kid that's 13 is like kind of just starting off and working with the family. The event in Phoenix, there was a legit like he may have been younger than 13, than like influencer type guy that does like e-com and drop shipping and all this type of stuff. I think he's just getting into real estate, but I get where I get where you're coming from, and that was
I'm
hilarious for
not
sure.
saying you can't do it, but you know what? When I go up to a lemonade stand or I buy a product from a kid running a business, I do that knowing who I'm buying from, and I support that. Man, you gotta fucking hustle, dude. Go fucking
Mhm.
hustle. But they're not on the phone representing that. They're
Right.
lying, which is where the ethics come in, and they're misrepresenting their ability and what they're doing, which is why I think Steve was right. EMDs should become required, and I think most of us are right that you're going to have to take a deal down, double close it, flip it, wholesale it, whatever you want to call it, novate it. But to do that, you're going to need the actual money and ability. And so that's going to weed out all of those people. It's one fell swoop. They can weed all that bullshit, unethical stuff out and give it a harder barrier to entry. The higher the barrier to entry, the higher the profits
Yeah.
are. It's basic economics. So
Preach.
it's good for all of us. Like I hope that happens. You'll be
Hmm.
buying property super cheap again. And you won't have people going, I could pay X amount more because now you're going to be held to the fire and you actually have to take that down and you need the money to do that. And if it ain't worth it, ain't nobody giving you the fucking money. All your private money people will shut you down real fast.
Yeah. We'll
Preach.
see.
Preach. So this kind of goes back to a point that I made before of talking about like adding like education somewhere into your software where it just like makes sense. Like if Investor Fuse, as an example, kind of thinking out loud, back me up here, guys, if you guys have thoughts, but it's like, a successful company using Investor Fuse is teaching how to convert a lead. It doesn't have to be like creative finance or any specific strategy, but it's just like follow up rhythm, like a PPC lead. What type of like follow up tree do you have for it? Like, do you call it 3 times when it first comes in, and then you follow up the next day? Do you follow up later that night, 12 hours, whatever? But this is sentiment from a couple people. So this would be Joe McCall and Chris Jefferson, two big guys in the space. Joe McCall is really tied in with Russell Brunson and the Funnel Hacking Live crew.
Hmm.
He's won awards and stuff like that there. The Russell Brunson event, I believe, is going on either this week currently or next week. But Joe McCall kind of had some inside insight into that. One of the biggest things that Russell Brunson is talking about is continuity programs that include software. So kind of the inverse of that, you take a coaching program or like an influencer that is selling. Let's say Brandon was selling a coach on wholesaling, just as an example here, like how to do wholesaling, how to start getting cold calling and whatever marketing strategies. So what Joe McCall and Russell Brunson are telling people at Flip Hacking Live or Funnel Hacking Live is not just to sell their coaching, but you need to have software on the back of it for your stacks that gets them sticky into it. So Joe McCall pretty much told the whole room, mainly to the coaches, people that's primary focus was coaching there, which is a lot of people, is to partner with some of the CRM and lead gen tools and add that to your stack and get it on there. And he's like, those are the ones that are going to survive. He gave an example for Freedom Soft. So he's had a bunch of different courses. Like he's had like a Z buyer where you're making offers off of Zillow. He's has the main thing I think he's doing now is a land thing. He sells that as his main thing and then adds Freedom Soft on the back end. So how he positions that or why that works for him is because does the same thing. He tries to get a customer to the aha moment with both his coaching and then the software that's on the back end. With Freedom Soft, he puts all his data in there, manages it. He has his students buy data right inside Freedom Soft or use data right inside Freedom Soft, send mail, and then when somebody answers that mail, they have a lead. It's all done in Freedom Soft. And he's also talking about like more, I guess, customer success emphasis on like walking students how to do that. because by the time they get to that aha moment in Freedom Soft, where it's like they choose the list, they send the mail, they have a lead in there, and now they're talking to the person. It's like so sticky for someone that bought the course already that it's so hard for them to leave that software and or course if they're already bought into it. So that's an example I think both of us could use on the RI Op Center side and on the Investor Fuse side. It's something that's logical and obviously makes sense, but just kind of hearing
But
through
that's
it
what
from a
my
high
face
level.
is like. Isn't this a thing already? Like,
I mean, me and John have had this for like since the beginning of REI App Center. It was our plan.
yeah. No, I mean it makes sense. And that's what we always talk
It's,
about with software, right? Is
yeah.
like you got to make it sticky, so it makes sense for people
Oh,
to teach coaching is to want to do the same thing.
Yeah, and just to reiterate before kicking to Papa P real quick, it's nothing that's groundbreaking, but when that gets brought up as Joe McCall presenting, and then it's a room of all the SaaS and coaches, it was interesting dialogue of different ways that you could chop that up and present it.
well, it's how you're. So it's, and I apologize because it's not about me and John on REI Op Center, but we're talking about a different room. So you're talking about coaches. One of the things that John and I discussed like a year or two ago was where we definitely think coaches fail because they offer the coaching and then you need the platform to do stuff on, right? They're selling the coaching. But the problem is they don't have a platform behind it or a software. Or they're selling the software and then like, okay, we'll train you how to use the software, right? Like that's what most software companies do. So I get it. This group of guru coaches at the Family Mastermind, they're like, hey guys, like if you sell your coaching and then kick in the software behind it, it's almost a no-brainer because not only do I teach you how to wholesale, but I give you this package, right, of software. And I think that's important. I always use, and I feel like we should bring him on because we always applaud him, but I always applaud REI Sift and Tyler Austin as somebody who
Yeah.
really excels. So I disagree with Carlos when he said it has to be somebody outside the company because I think
Yeah.
Tyler is a perfect example of somebody who built a software to help his own life and then was able to coach on that software, but also coach how to use it and do wholesaling in general while using it, like how his software benefits that. So you buy the software and get the coaching. I think he excels at that,
Oh,
which is not
he's the
necessarily what
master of
Carlos
that.
is saying, but I think he is one of the people in the software industry that has found a way to blend coaching and software together.
Agreed.
100%. Now, I do believe you're right. I think if I coach and I'm teaching wholesaling, or let's like, so for me and John, one of the things that we did with REI App Center is data. Like, let's coach you on how to manage your data, how to properly organize your data, where to buy your data, all that. And oh, by the way, while I'm coaching you, you're getting our software for free essentially on actually holding your data, organizing and all that stuff. And I think that's key because you teach that and then you sell the product that solves that problem. Because you could teach how to, but the how to still is a problem of the actual implementation, and then you sell them that product into it. I think that's the way to go, but most gurus don't have their own software, bro.
100%. That's the last part of it. There is that the reason that I mean, a lot of gurus don't have their own software, so it's like they need to find somebody. Even Joe McCall, like in that example, it's like he doesn't have his own CRM. Like he used to promote Real Automation. That was the first version of Investor Fuse. He used Podio for a while. Then he jumped to Freedom Soft. So it's like he focuses on the coaching and then just the bolt-on software.
And I
Which he's
think
done
that's
even
great for software, though. It's
another discussion I didn't have written out here, but it's kind of all this piece that I kind of wanted to bring up. It has some relating points there, and then Tyler Austin has done a masterful job with Sift. That wasn't my perspective that the owner can't do it. I was just kind of relaying the
I
general.
think it should be both. I think your software. So as an owner, so the way I've always looked at it, right, for my software, my software is more valuable because of my coaching.
Definitely.
And I think so. If I had no coaching, what is my software? It's just the product, right? But when I add the coaching in and maybe charge a little bit for that, maybe you have like a deposit and entry fee, whatever you're going to do for that, you add more revenue, but then that software becomes more valuable and it becomes more sticky because you're teaching these people how to use it and you're building a community around it. But look at what other softwares have done. Like you could use the influencer base. If I go and I join Nick Perry's Mastermind, right? And I know he uses Investor Lift, and I'm going to dispo deals, and I see my mentor or my coach crushing it at 500, whatever he makes now, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And I say, how do you dispo all this? And he goes, well, I use Investor Lift. Do you think I'm not going to go buy the same software product that my mentor is recommending to me? I just paid X amount of money to be in this thing. He's proven to me how to acquire deals, right? So, and now I need to know how to dispo. And he goes, well, everything else I told you worked. Let me tell you how I dispo it. It's a no-brainer.
Agreed, my man. The other element of that, Chris Jefferson, really, really smart dude, both on the marketing side of things and then also just building a really successful coaching program, community, everything. Kind of another element added to what we're, kind of piggyback on what we're just talking about. He was talking, in his opinion, how the product is the binder not only between the education / coaching program, but then the other element to add in here is the community. So it's kind of those three things that I didn't mention with the Joe McCall. It's like coaching program, software that ideally either the owner or a micro influencer is coaching on, and then the community management. That's why Tyler does like well with all three. Like the REI Sift community is
And
they're diehard. The Pace community, which I have some Pace.
Well, Pace doesn't have software though, right? Like he does
the first approach. He does the Joe McCall approach.
Yeah, he has a great community. He has great education, but no software, right? And it's like, and then so people may have pieces of it, but Tyler it's just unique. He doesn't use a lot of gurus. It's just him teaching what he does with his software. I think people like a community. I think they rely on it. It's if you had a software and no community, or coaching and no community, you might do well, but you won't do great without that community. I don't think people like a place to go. And let's be honest, the coach isn't always available. So you allow your students to teach each other.
Mm-hmm. Preach. Let's see. Let me do a couple bullets on just one advice from Pace and Jamil. And then let's switch over to mobile stuff.
Cool.
So I think you'll appreciate this one. So Pace said one of his best advice he gave to everybody. So a couple things is kind of to stay on that same train is when you're building a brand, don't jump around and do all this stuff. Like be in it for like a minimum like 10 years. Like he was speaking to people, I guess, mainly that maybe taught like wholesaling or one specific thing. And now they're doing creative finance or sub 2, just because that applies to him because he's the sub 2 guy. He's like, in 10 years, I'm going to be the subject 2 and creative finance guy. So he was more so saying, in addition to like the software discussion, you can also loop in other coaching stuff. So for example, if I had like a wholesaling course, but I wanted to teach people like commercial, I could loop in Tim Bratz and I say, hey, Tim, or to my community, I'd say, hey guys, I want to give you guys some commercial stuff. I'm actually going to have Tim Bratz as a coaching guest expert instead of me trying to teach that. So Pace actually gave a really nice give to everybody. He's like, hey, for all you guys that have like coaching and modules, instead of you learning subject 2 and teaching your own way, bring me in under your umbrella. I'd be happy to give that to you as a free give. And it's like a win-win for both people because it's like the top subject 2 guy versus everything else. So I don't know. For me, it was just interesting. And again, this isn't anything earth-shattering news, but just hearing it talked and everybody's perspective was interesting on everything. So that's kind of the opposite or the inverse of it with Pace, where he's saying from a coaching perspective, like if Joe McCall is teaching land instead of teaching subject 2 or how to do mobiles, he just hits up Papa P and is like, hey, can you just be a guest expert on my coaching program?
Yeah, and like I think that opens it up, and maybe this is not a new idea, but I was just thinking about it. Maybe people are doing it, but let's say Pace is a guru on sub 2, and I'm teaching mobile homes, right? And instead of teaching sub 2, I just go and pay Pace, and I'm like, hey, listen, I want to pull you in, not just for one call, but I want like 6 months of you coming one day a week or whatever. Here's $100,000, whatever it is, right? Pay him $100,000 for 6 hours of his time, 6 1-hour sessions to teach my community that like I could see that type of merging of because you look at it as stackable modules. Everybody's skill, like whether it's wholesaling, whether it's seller finance, whether it's sub-2, whether it's mobile homes, novations, and you go to Eric Brewer and do the same thing, whoever his coach is, right? Because I know Eric's not doing the coaching himself. You go and say, listen, I want your best coach, and I'll pay you whatever you want, 100 grand, 200 grand, to come for the next 6 months into my mastermind and do it once a week or whatever, an hour a week. How much would that cost? And now your community gets that value without necessarily having to go buy it. And if they want it, they then go and they know who the expert is to go buy that and join that community. And there's an upsell at the end. I think that could be a thing. That's kind of cool. It would help your community grow. You're bringing in all these experts. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I could see
I like
that.
it, man. I like it. Let me give 2 quick bullet points, and then let's roll over to mobiles. Pace, also another thing that's not earth shattering, but makes a ton of sense. He says he's always going to have the best lead magnet. Don't have to be creative, no pun intended. Don't have to do anything like crazy or think of this new lead magnet. Just show HUDs. Like literally, the best lead magnet is a HUD, just showing that you bought an actual piece of real estate and that you're actually doing the business. Shows the address. That's sad.
It's so sad. It's so sad that actually has to.
Oh, yeah.
Not what he's saying. Yes, I'm saying it's so sad.
Right.
That's what the industry has come to. Until like the mainstream wholesaling stuff, I never counted how many deals I've had. I never cared who got the credit for the deal. Like I was always trained. It doesn't matter who's making the money is what really matters, right? Mm-hmm. Never counted how many transactions I sold or what my volume was. Like never, because you never had to prove it to people.
Yeah.
But nowadays, like I get it. There's so many people pretending like, yeah, you got to show HUD. You got to prove that you actually do this because everyone's trying to sell you a song and a dance now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I agree with that 100%. And I also think it's like, just don't overcomplicate things. Like if you're teaching how to do real estate, it's like, you can just say like, hey, here's how I made X amount of money doing this real estate transaction. Jamil gave some good advice on blowing up his brand. He's the man, super cool dude. He put an emphasis on YouTube, essentially funneling everything to YouTube. Like Instagram is cool and you can get like a lot of eyeballs and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you should be funneling everything to YouTube because YouTube is where all your buyers are. And YouTube is trending just towards more and more eyeballs and just is trending, I guess, just to be a more valuable platform for people actually, as far as buying stuff. Like Instagram, you get
really
engagement.
Monetize it too.
It's more monetizable.
You get more monetization over there.
Exactly. And he's saying for people, I guess all of us, could be doing things instead of like going on social media and seeing influencers and stuff, reaching out to YouTubers too. So reaching out to any type of YouTuber that you want to collaborate with. And he had success with that. People hit him up. And I thought that was just kind of like a quick little hack or thing to think about, is focus more on YouTube than Instagram.
I dig that.
Transitioning to mobiles, as I mentioned, we drove to there and back. I drove on the way back because Esteban and Omer both had calls. I was whipping Esteban's Tesla back. But I guess we took a different way on the way there than on the way back because I thought of you, because I think we rolled through Lakeland. I saw a bunch of Lakeland signs, and there's just a bunch of like Native American sounding signs like Okeechobee and all these different ones. Is that had to be through you or no?
Yeah, you probably went like through 60. You probably came down 60, connected through like the Yeehaw Junction type of thing, and then Okeechobee. You headed south
all
towards
types of stuff like that.
Yeah.
All type of signs like that. But I was rolling through and I saw Lakeland signs. I'm like, man, I know the mayor of Lakeland. I can.
Yeah, that's where I was. I don't know if I was there or if I was in. I don't know what day it was. I might have been in Arkansas at that time. But yeah.
How was it? I saw some of your posts. Like I watched a couple and then I skipped through some because I was like, I want to hear.
It's all good. About it. I don't know, man. Like I couldn't post. Like I was pissed off. My phone overheats in my hand. Like
Is
I
it
had
just since the new iPhone came out where the operating system gets jacked up, or
I don't know. It literally goes black and then it says temperature too hot because one, it's hot outside, but like all I'm
mm,
doing is taking photos and like I had to keep going back to my car, putting it in front of the AC and waiting my phone. Now I don't know if it's because like you can actually see like the inside of my like the maybe that's why because
potential
it's all
crack or something there?
well you can't see it on the camera, but you can actually see like the chip inside of it.
Oh
So I
wow.
don't know if that's the reason. I don't
It
know
looks
what's going on with my
like in
phone.
it looks like in the Terminator movies,
Yeah,
like when
yeah,
some of
with
their
his face.
synthetic
Yeah.
skin. Yeah.
But so I got there. I didn't get as much posting as I wanted because honestly my phone kept overheating. I was trying to take photos for my investors and stuff, but yeah, dude, it's a piece of shit. But it won't be when I'm done with it, but like
Good.
it's definitely a turd that needs to be polished. Um Yeah, I went to my park first, went down there, caught some stuff, checked in on my handyman, wanted to make sure the landscape people were doing what they were supposed to do. Um, I probably cut it a little short. Like I think should have stayed for 2 days. It's just tough because I woke up at 3, drove to the airport. I was in Arkansas by 9 o'clock, got my
That's crazy.
rental. Yeah, dude, I was at down at my park by
What
like
day was
nine
that?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
So I was down at my park by like 9:45, and then I was just puttering around. I had like they make me a list of things to do. We use Monday, give me a list of tasks and subtasks I have to check on and do. Did all that. Like found people hanging laundry in their front yard. Like that's a no. I found mattresses. So like I pop there every month, and my job every month is to make sure the park's looking clean. We have people that go and check on it for us. In a community, people are always ratting on other people, so it's
So
like
funny.
and we're working on a camera system right now for our parks. Now that we're buying more than one, we want to have a like video monitoring going on in our parks, so
Hmm.
that way we can avoid a lot of stuff. Um, but yeah, we caught some kids sneaking in. We got a report from a neighbor saying kids were in the night before I got there, partying or whatever, in one of our vacants that we were getting ready for rent.
Oh my god.
But they didn't do any damage. Like I'm actually happy about it. My wife was all pissed, and I'm like, honey, like all they did was leave like a bunch of peanut shells inside, because the back door was like it wasn't latching, so they just got in through the back door, and there's just like half-eaten peanut shells everywhere. And I'm like, when I was 13 or whatever age they are, like that place would have been vandalized. I was a fucking hoodlum. Like so if that's the karma and that's what I'm dealing with is peanut shells in a blind that fell down, like I'll take that as God blessing me and saying like, here's your lesson, make sure your doors are locked, like thank you if that's the worst that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So our handyman went out there and did that, added some deadbolts to it, and we're good to go. But then I headed over to my park, my new one, about 30 minutes from this one. Went down there and met the realtor, good old boy from Arkansas, backed into this listing, which is the only reason why I got it because he's not a commercial realtor, so it's not on any commercial sites. So it's kind of off market, but not.
Mhm.
Met him, we walked the park. It's 68 units, 24 occupied spots, mixture of mobiles with some RVs on the mobile lots because they just didn't give a shit. Like that's not
Mhm.
going to fly with me. I'm kicking all of them out. Like they'll move out once I start jacking rents up. But and not jacking rents up. I'm not going to do that, but we incrementally raise them every year,
Fairly
a
incrementally
moderate
raise them
amount.
with the
Yeah,
market.
yeah, people are going to misconstrue what I meant by jacking them up. That's not how we operate. We have like a 5-year plan, so we'll gradually raise them up to market over that time frame.
Mhm.
But RVs are more mobile, so typically they can bounce to another site a lot easier than a mobile home can. Anyway, like, dude, it's interesting. I'm working on my syndication documents now because now that I went there, like now I actually have to come up with a business plan of like what I'm gonna do to the park. So I got 28 spots to fill. We have 16 RV daily spots in the back. Right now, dude, like this park only pulls in like 7K. And it's funny, the 23 spots pull in about 3,800 bucks. They have 7 RV spots in the back rented out that pulls in as much as the permanent mobile spots.
Interesting.
Yeah. RVs, like I've been on the phone cold calling a lot, and I've talked to a lot of mobile guys or mobile home park guys, like mom and pops, and especially in Kentucky, they're all switching to RVs. And they're like, well, I'm in the middle of converting all my pads to RVs, so it's not a mobile home park anymore. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And I've heard it so many times, but I started doing the math, and I'm like putting my financial sheet together. I'm like, holy shit, they're really making a ton of money. $20 a day is way under market for this area on an RV pad for a 30 amp. That's $480 a month. The average mobile home lot, right? You're getting 350, maybe 400 if you're in Atlanta or like Charlotte, or like maybe you're getting $600 a month because you're inside the city. You know what I mean? Of a major metro. Like if you're in Miami on a mobile home, you're probably paying $800 for lot rent, right?
Mhm.
Which is still cheap to be in Miami, but like very expensive for the mobile home park industry. So like I did the math and I'm like, wow, like there's really something here with these RVs, and it's right next to a casino. Um, it's something. So I get to decide what we're going to do with it. And we have some back acreage, and they're trying to sell me there's two neighboring lots they want to sell me to that border between my property and the casino. There's two 13, 15 acre lots, whatever they are, that sandwich between that the family owns, and they want to sell them. And then there's a house right next to it with some more acreage this way. I mean, I'm not a bank account, like I'm not a money bag, so I can't buy all of them, but it is something we're considering. Like, could we expand the RV
Hmm.
side of the business?
I mean, the financials make it interesting for sure. I'm not super knowledgeable on the
Well, what kind of questions do you have about it?
RV setup. I guess what makes it like, is it like different zoning, or what makes it like more attractive now to do like an RV type
So
setup
it's
versus
what I might not have
a
finished my
mobile?
sentence, but if in the city of Atlanta, I'm getting $600, right? In that metro, 600.
Mhm.
I'm rural Arkansas, right? So my pad rent for a mobile is only like $300, 350.
Gotcha.
We'll say 350.
So I
So
guess
go
I
ahead.
was going to say, I guess my question is just purely financially, just
It's
makes more
purely
sense.
financial.
Okay. So there's not any like zoning or
So
like,
the different no, it's not. There's zoning differences, but that's not the reason why they're doing it. It comes down to money. Like, so
Mhm.
you have a higher turn because a RV could get up and go, where a
Mhm.
mobile cannot get. They're not mobile. Mobiles are not very mobile. It costs like
Ironically, yeah.
yeah, 5, 6 grand to move it. It's not that you can't. Not a lot of these people have the 5, 6 grand saved up. They're living paycheck to paycheck. So no, they're not
Mhm.
moving their thing, which is another reason why you don't just jack rents up on them. That's just not ethical because
Mhm.
they are living paycheck to paycheck. But so if I can rent this pad out, so right now they're all rented at 175 a month, bro. 175 and market is 350. So they're 50% of what they should be at. And then the RV pad should be a little bit more too. It's way under rented, but when you do the math, if I could get my mobile lots up to 350, but currently I'm getting 480 on a 30 amp RV pad or 600 on a 50 amp RV pad, and you do the same thing. You're not doing anything. You're just leasing the land. Like, I don't owe them anything. There's nothing required. Like, it
Mhm.
requires the same amount of work. Which one would you do?
Mhm.
Now, of course, you're going to have a higher vacancy on the RV stuff because people will come and go. Mobiles, once they're set, they're pretty much staying. I think it's like 8, 10 years is the average length of stay. Don't quote me on that. I forget the stat. I think it's 8 to 10 years is the average tenancy of a mobile home park lot. And then it usually transfers over to someone else. But the average tenancy of the actual mobile home itself is like 30 years. It's a lot longer. Once that mobile set, it stays. It's the owner that will sell it to somebody else.
Very cool. And the RVs, if someone's moving, like they're just paying per day. They're not locked into like a.
It depends. There's different models. I am not 100% sure what's going on. This is all I got. This is what the owners gave me. This is all they had. I gave them a whole due diligence checklist of everything I wanted. They had none of it, and a little bit of some of it.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm figuring a lot out. But yeah, I mean that's it. They're either daily or monthly. But they have no leases. They have no deposits. I asked them for all that. They have nothing. Um, they just charge $175. There's an old man at the front who gets to live for free that collects the rent. He looks like he could go at any moment too. He was an interesting character. I don't even know how to describe his. his walk,
His
his
being.
his Frankensteinish walk of like it looked like there was a zombie slash a Frankenstein lumbering my direction. I was like, how does this motherfucker do anything? He can barely move, but he takes care of the park. We'll keep him on for a bit probably, as he knows a lot of the stuff,
Mhm.
and we'll get it turned around. But it's a phenomenal deal, and now I just got to put the money together.
That's awesome, man.
So
That's awesome.
we got to decide what we're going to do with it. We got to decide about the RV pads, and I mean, it needs a lot of work. Roads need done. I mean, got to re-asphalt roads, got to put up signage, got to clean the yards up, got to infill. I mean, we have 28 vacant spots that we got to bring in. So it's going to be a lot of work. That's the hardest part of the mobile home industry is infilling your lots.
Mhm.
Rehabbing is easy. If the homes already exist, that's easy. Just fix them up. But not having anything there, I got to bring them in depending on permits. I got to get pull permits to connect to everything. Could be a lot. Arranging the transport of your mobile, bringing it down the highway, dropping it in to your facility.
Roughly, what percentage of that do you think you could manage virtually versus having to be there? If you had to guesstimate.
I don't know how to do it in percentage terms, but I will say the majority of it we're going to do virtually, but I do have full intentions as I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up homes. I will be out there.
Yeah,
Like
I was gonna
that's
say
my
for
job.
me, my gut is like, man, that sounds like some
Yeah.
boots
One
on
of
the
the
ground.
things we're thinking about doing, because it's next to the casino, is maybe buying a couple RVs and setting them up kind of like an Airbnb status, like because there's only like 2 hotels and the casino doesn't have their hotels built yet. So they own all the casino. We're on an access road, like 5 lots, 15-acre lots down, right? So there's probably like 50, 60, whatever acres in between us. And there's an access road that connects their parking lot to my park. So that all that land, other than what the family owns, the two that the family own, is going to be their hotel, resort, pool, all that stuff. They haven't built that yet. They just put the
Mhm.
casino up like 3 years ago. Um, so I think there's potential for maybe buying some RVs and setting them up and then renting them out, the actual RVs, you know what I mean, on a nightly
Mhm.
rate type of thing. And I would probably just stay in one of those is kind of what I'm thinking. Drop an RV, stay in that, live in that for like a week or two while I'm meeting people out there to get the infrastructure and hook up the sites and everything like that.
I
Um,
like it, man. That's like full immersion, boots
yeah,
on the ground.
yeah. I would have done it at Honeysuckle. We just didn't have any. We don't have any like vacant filled anything there. Everything we have to like we need to rent out. There's nothing vacant that would take money away. But with
Mhm.
here, with an extra lot, like on an RV pad, I can rationalize losing $20 a day because I doubt I'm going to be at 100%
Yeah,
occupancy every single night in my RV lot, so I could live there potentially without taking money away from our investors and
they got
use it as like an
Starlink
offense.
internet out there. Or would you able to get set up with internet in the RV?
Yeah, I don't know what they have out there. That's actually a very good question. What they use for like Wi-Fi and stuff out there.
Yeah, just in case
I
you're working and need to be on the internet.
so I've read some horror stories about RV parks and Wi-Fi and what they offer and don't offer, and the amount of complaints when there's not a good connection. And they say it adds a whole level of customer care service to your park that you may not want because now everyone's complaining about, oh, your internet's slow. Oh, I can't
Mhm.
connect this. So a lot of guys just have like, depending on their RV park, they'll have it inside their general store, inside their little seating area or whatever. But generally, people in their RVs have their own internet situated, and uh, you know,
Cool, man. That's exciting stuff, and I think you're going to continue getting rewarded just because you really go full immersion on the acquisition of the parks, like cold calling it hard and just going out there on a monthly basis and full
yeah.
immersion if you end up living out there. So you have good things in the pipeline for your puppy.
Yeah, I got back at like 1 a.m., dude. It was rough. I was like, I flew in, we landed at 12. It was a long day, and then I was back up at work yesterday at normal time, um, working on this. And the funny thing is like I made more offers, and I'm waiting for this agent to get back to me because I offered a seller finance terms. We were negotiating out like the final couple terms, and if I get that one, that'll be number three,
Damn, man.
and then things start to snowball. So
Absolutely. I think that's how it works. Stuff starts to snowball. Like 0 to 1 in most things that you do
yeah,
is typically the longest. Then maybe 1 to 2, and then I think it's kind of snowball from there in general.
yeah, yeah. I hear that a lot from people where it's like, these guys who buy, they come in and you hear them on these podcasts because I've been immersing myself in a lot of, the industry itself, right?
Mhm.
Um, and they'll be like, yeah, well, the first one took me X amount, then I got this one. And then all of a sudden, I have like 15 parks within
Mhm.
like 3 years. Like, well, how did you scale up to 15? It took you a year
Mhm.
to do this. And it's because all those offers they've made, all those relationships they've built, all start to snowball as the months and you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, and I was joking around with my wife and I was like, watch, now that we're buying this one and like all these people are starting to call us back, watch all of a sudden we now have a money problem where it's like now we
I
have
think so.
before we had a deal flow problem, now we might have a money flow problem if all the deals start coming back because the market's shifting. Like even in the mobile home park stuff, it's definitely shifting to where sellers and stuff are getting a little more realistic. I've seen multiple price reductions on mobile home parks themselves. Um, so it's quite interesting.
A random thought I had this week at some point was, have you seen like on Instagram, like it'll be like a joking type post
Yeah.
where it's like these old people like dancing, and the point of the joke is essentially saying how cheap houses were for like boomers
Yeah. I've seen those videos.
in like
And they're like
60, 70,
the old
80s.
lady's dancing. She's like selling
Yeah.
my house that I bought for like $20 back in 1960 and selling it for like
Yeah.
1.3 mil.
Exactly. So I thought of that, and I always was on that, like, kind of on that stance of like, oh damn, like these, that generation was able to get into properties so cheap, and like stuff has just appreciated like crazy. While I'm still acknowledging stuff has appreciated like crazy, there's also the argument talking about, or the perspective talking about how interest rates were historically low, like years ago, like under 4 and under 3%.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot from there. But in those times when the boomers were buying houses, weren't the rates like
No.
10% or like something crazy or higher like
But
that?
here's the difference. Prices haven't come back down to match the rates.
Yeah.
So prices more than doubled on homes when rates went down because people could afford them, so they drove the demand up. But like your and I don't know an exact example, but your 3.5% mortgage that brought your payment on a 600K home to $2,500 a month, making this up, but now at 7.5%, that same mortgage payment is $5,000 because well, how come that house hasn't come down in price then?
Hmm.
To match that affordability factor, it hasn't. That house then should get cut in half, so then your mortgage rates are the same, but that's not what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
When rates went down, prices went up, and rates go up, and prices still haven't come down.
So the boomers were still in a better position, and that joking meme
Prices
still
were
holds
cheap
true.
back then, so even
Yeah.
though interest rates. Now, on another side of it, if you look at income growth, income just hasn't grown. Income
Mm-hmm.
has not grown. I mean, dude, like I feel like I'm preaching every week about this, but like go to the grocery store, dude. Like everything's twice as expensive, and that's not an exaggeration. It is 2x the cost at these grocery stores for food, and my income didn't 2x, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
average W2 worker didn't double their income, but everything got more expensive, and interest rates go up, making everything more expensive. Prices need to come down, and they haven't, which is why I think there's going to be a crash. But yeah, I mean, good for the boomers. They also didn't buy half the stupid shit that we buy.
Right.
Like my parents are very much of that generation. Work hard, stay at a job, save up your money, 401k, you become a millionaire through your hard work, savings, you know what I mean? Your
Mm-hmm.
promotions at work, your 401k, your Roth IRAs, your stock investments, your real estate, the house that you have gets paid off. And over time, those things work out. And I don't think we should hate on them for that. They did what we don't do,
Mm-hmm.
right? My parents had the same vacuum from 1980 to today.
Oh
That
my gosh.
motherfucker, but then you could argue, well, they make them different, and they did. My parents had the same vacuum. She still uses it, even though I bought her a Dyson for Christmases many Christmases ago. I mean, it still takes bags. Like you have to put a bag
That's
into
so
the
funny.
vacuum. They didn't buy a new one every 3 years like we do. Like my dad fixed shit. Like nowadays, like my house, like my family, if something gets too dirty, Carlos, my wife will throw it out.
Like what?
Like if it's just too dirty. It could be anything. It could be a cup, like a plastic cup that sits outside and gets crusted with stuff, and like there's a dead cockroach in it or a dead lizard body. And instead of just like cleaning it out, throwing it in the dishwasher and be like, oh, like we can use this sports bottle again, they'll be like, ugh, it goes in the trash. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
there's a rag or a towel that fell on the way to the laundry room because our laundry room's outside and it sits outside for too long, that's just never going to get clean again.
Hmm.
We'll throw it out. We're very wasteful now, and our parents weren't, and our grandparents weren't, so they saved more money than us.
Hmm.
And you can
Definitely
blame it
true.
on income not growing, but I also think there's a lot of spending habits that are different.
Oh, I think, and that's what a lot of people say is like a general thing of the kind of like the understanding like the psychology behind spending and trends and the economy and how people invest and all that
Yeah,
stuff is so much like habits slash
yeah.
psychology, which a lot of people talk about like with trading, like trading stocks and things like that, kind of like the psychology of the masses and making predictions on like what they're going to do.
I think our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, were very good at delayed gratification.
Mm-hmm.
I think our generation is horrible at it because of the way our society is.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're very wasteful, and I think we have a need to spend. Like I'm not a Dave Ramsey fan. I believe you should buy that Starbucks coffee, but you know who didn't buy that Starbucks coffee? My mom,
Mm-hmm.
my dad. You know what I mean? Like your parents. They didn't have this need on a Saturday morning to go get that coffee. You know what I mean? They
Mm-hmm.
bought a canister of Folgers, they made that, they dealt
Mm-hmm.
with it, they saved up, we went on family vacations, we wrote
Reused
money.
filters.
Yeah, bro, we did. And like now that my mom's moved in with us for the helping out with the baby and stuff, like it's wild to see like her saving. We have more
Oh
leftovers
yeah.
than we've ever had. If there's like, dude, she'll make something and there'll be like one bite, like literally one bite of something. We call it a scraps dish. She'll set up a dish on the counter and put whatever's in there, hoping that somebody will eat it. If not, it'll go in the fridge and then tomorrow it'll get brought back out and put on the counter for somebody who wants to pick at it and eat it. If my mom wasn't around, you want to know what happened to those scraps?
Dog.
Yeah, the dog would have eaten it or it would have went in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
It's that mentality that
Yeah.
those generation had of everything matters, and our generation's mentality is I deserve everything and none of that matters, so I'll throw it out and I'll get my gratification somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're making a shit ton of money, that's a luxury of the rich, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Agreed, man. Well, this has been good convo. John had to pop
John
off
had to
here halfway
bounce. We
through.
didn't really say anything. John just kind of
We
left,
didn't. We didn't really like just nothing even happened.
which is like, where did he go? It was like one of those shows where the vanishing of the people. And it's just like
That's funny.
vanished, you know? But
Yeah.
and then my dog's over here barking all the time.
The dog heard us mentioning getting scraps of human food and now
Yeah,
wants some.
she was like, "What's up, man?" But that's another reason why I'm kind of interested in getting a camper and driving around to these parks so I can bring my dog with me too, instead of
That
leaving
dog's
her
awesome.
behind. It's a good lifestyle thing.
Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna say was, have you been watching a lot of the Sean Terry stuff that he's posting? He's really doubling down on showing what he believes with the market coming down, crashing.
No, I haven't as much. I remember liking something of his this week that I only caught a second of, kind of in passing. You know, sometimes you just like stuff if it's like
Yeah.
something you resonate with or you like the person, you kind of just automatically like it. I did one of those guys, but no, I could dive back. But he really is taking that approach. It seems, which is interesting.
And I think it's interesting because he's not trying to sell you anything. Like
Mm-mm.
a lot of the people that are saying that the market's okay are also simultaneously selling you something to
Mhm.
do something in the market.
Mhm.
But like you're starting to see these fissures and these cracks in the market itself if you're really paying attention. And it's like, when will it happen and how bad will it be? I think is the only things that we need to really consider. And that's what I've really been eyeing on is like, when is when do you think is a good time to buy versus to wait?
Mhm.
Like, and is there an asset class that you just buy no matter what, right? Because the whole idea of as a flipper, as a wholesaler, just buy deeper. How deep is deep to protect you from a crash?
So that's the $1 million question that I think happens every cycle. Like I've
Do you
given an
just
example
stop?
of, yeah, I've given an example of one of my good friends that lives up in Delray. He's from Baltimore, super successful multifamily guy. He only wants to buy stuff that he's going to hold for at least 5 years. And he is like Sean Terry and more. Like he doesn't want to touch anything because he doesn't want to, what's the expression, like fall on a bleeding knife or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm not buying anything real estate until it starts crashing because he thinks listens to a lot of economic stuff and market stuff and is in more so into stocks at the time being, but he's not touching anything, like literally not touching anything. Some people, they're like, all right, if I could get it like 50 cents on the dollar or whatever. Some people just have different parameters. That's why it's interesting listening to everybody's perspective and their philosophy behind what moves they're making is always like the most interesting thing to me.
Yeah, I agree. Like, so this park I offered on, one of the sticking points, right, wasn't the price; it was the term of the loan. And he wanted 5 years, and I won't do 5 years. And I was trying to walk the realtor through it, right? Because I'm working through a realtor on this, and why I want a 7-year balloon and how it benefits the seller because he doesn't want
Mm-hmm.
it back, like he wants to get rid of it. And my thing is I don't know what's going to happen. And she laughed because I go, listen, I said, right now, there's a war going on. We have train derailments, chicken coops blowing up. We have aliens in Mexico, aliens flying over. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 years. At least 7 years gives me a little more time. She started laughing. And she said, it's amazing. I've talked to a lot of people, and no one's ever brought up the alien thing. And I'm wondering why no one's talking about aliens. And I said, that's what I've been wondering. Like, Mexico comes out with an alien body. The U.S. government has seated like a military official sit down in front of the Senate and talk about aliens, and nobody is talking about
That's quiet.
the fact that we've admitted we have alien bodies and
Real quiet.
technology, and they exist.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? We haven't even talked about it on the show, bro.
I know.
No one's amazed by this.
Because we're almost like indoctrinated, or like now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I'm almost indoctrinated to like not put a big deal on it because other people aren't putting a big deal on it. If it was
Exactly.
5 years ago, it would be like Joe Rogan. He
It's
would
like
have
they
more alien
washed
people
over it,
on.
dude. They
Yeah,
washed over it.
a real touch and go.
Like, nobody stopped to be like, that's an ant. Like, we saw photos of it, and people are acting like, well, yeah, it's.
Yeah. Everybody's seen Men in Black. Like, yeah, they're around.
And that's the thing. It's almost what we were talking about. It sounds like it's almost that it's been a silent acknowledgement for decades that we've all known and understand that it exists, but there has been no proof.
Mhm.
Now that there is proof, we're all just like validated. We're like, I told you so. Like,
Right.
I fucking knew it. Nothing new here. I've known about these aliens since Independence Day with Will Smith. Like, I'm pretty sure we've all known this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's funny how like people aren't panicking. Like, and that's one of the concerns I have is not so much aliens doing anything, but the instability of the general economy and the world news and like what's going on with the election. I mean, like, I find it wild, and that's where my concern with real estate comes in. I like mobile home parks. I think people are always going to need to pay me cash flow. So if the numbers work, the numbers work. But like single family homes, your values aren't based on income; they're based on market value.
Mhm.
So it becomes more. I don't know.
I'm with you, man. I think there's definitely can be some. I don't even know, like black swan, just like a culmination of many things on top of there needs to be a market correction anyway. That's kind of jumping on it to push it down.
I mean,
So I'm with you.
what is it? We have wildfires. They lost a jet. Guy ejected, and the jet kept flying, crashed in South Carolina somewhere, like around like Ukraine, Russia. Like, name something that you thought would have never happened that's not happening right now, and it's all happening at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
all within 3 years. Pandemics, mosquito flies, Bill Gates.
Interesting stuff.
So I feel like we could go on a whole separate tangent with some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Definitely. Well, this is a good episode, man. Good touch base. Glad that we're both back in office. For those of you guys that haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing so we can get more guests on here, bring more fun conversations to you guys.
Let's lock and load, guys. I appreciate it. See you next week. Let's do it.
Cool. Take it easy, guys.
Boom, boom.